Joining me live now from Bangkok is CNN's senior international correspondent, Will Ripley. Will, what is the latest on the situation there in Thailand and also in Myanmar?
Hi, Rhiannon. Well, you can see it's really a massive rescue operation happening here. Just behind those gates there, you can see volunteers going in and out. And above the gates, that heavy machinery that's been digging throughout the day, trying to stay away from that main pile of twisted metal and concrete, because they're still primarily digging by hand in the areas where they say they've detected possibly 15 signs of life, 15 people potentially alive buried under the rubble. But the hours have passed today. They've been searching since the early morning hours local, and they have not found anybody alive yet. Yesterday, they were even hearing cell phones ringing. They had dogs sniffing through, trying to find out where there might be people. But obviously, with each passing hour, the sense of urgency grows because they know that there's a limited window of time where somebody can survive, if they did survive the toppling of that 30-story skyscraper, which happened in just a matter of seconds. It's extraordinary to see how many people have turned out here in Bangkok. There's a whole row of ambulances down there waiting just in case they find somebody alive. Thailand really has a very robust disaster response, unlike the situation in Myanmar, which you detailed in your report that aired just before we came on the air here. And so the fact that they're not finding any survivors here, despite all of this effort here in Bangkok, it certainly paints a very grim picture of what people must be experiencing as we now go into another overnight period with very limited sleep. People basically haven't slept since this earthquake struck because they've been frantically trying to find anybody alive, but they just don't have the manpower, they don't have the infrastructure in place in Myanmar to do this there. So for anybody who's trapped in the countless buildings that are believed to be toppled in Myanmar, we don't have pictures yet because it's so difficult to get information out. But your heart just aches thinking about what the families there are going through. We talked to some family members here, Rhiannon, including a woman who's worked with her husband as construction workers, as electricians for 30 years. They were working in the building yesterday. She's his assistant. She had stepped outside to go to the bathroom for just a few minutes. Of course, the earthquake hit without warning. The building toppled, and she said she looked exactly at the floor where her husband was as the building came down. So she's been sitting out here basically waiting, believing that until she sees a body, she is holding out hope that her husband, the father of her 2 children, her partner of 30 years, and her professional colleague as well, because they also work together, holding out hope that he might be one of the people alive. It is seeing the look in her eyes, in the eyes of all the family members here that we've been speaking with. You can't put into words how sad this situation is, but there's still hope out here, and you can see, as evidenced by this very robust effort, hope that they might be able to find somebody and reunite them with their waiting loved ones outside here.
Yeah, certainly some harrowing stories coming out of the region. The search continues, as you say. Already we've seen the death toll rising significantly. Should we expect that it will continue to rise further?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen a dramatic uptick just in the last 24 hours, and the U.S. Geological Survey, as I'm sure you've been reporting this morning, this evening, they're estimating that upwards of 10,000 people could be confirmed dead by the time this is said and done. And the reason why they think that is because of how close this earthquake hit to a very densely populated city of around 1.5 million people. That's Mandalay in Myanmar, the second largest city there. I mean, the fact that we're 600 miles from the epicenter here in Bangkok, and even here, you have destruction like this, and you have buildings across the city that are still being inspected by engineers, trying to make sure that they're not in danger of collapse. I mean, remember, this building was under construction, and so this is not a typical scene that you're seeing throughout Bangkok, unlike the cities in Myanmar where you actually have some areas where there's just a number of collapsed buildings and not nearly enough people to even begin the process of trying to dig out any potential survivors.
And Will, Thailand's Prime Minister is facing criticism over a lack of warning about the quake. What more can you tell us about this?
Well, earthquakes are very difficult to predict on a good day, and despite all of the best efforts to try to increase earthquake or early warnings, the fact is it's very, very difficult, if not impossible, to predict with accuracy when an earthquake is going to strike. And keep in mind, Bangkok doesn't sit on a fault line. Myanmar does, so they're very earthquake prone. That impoverished country that's been in the grips of a civil war for the last 4 years, so they've had their attention focused elsewhere. But here in Thailand, despite the fact that they didn't have a warning, they were able to mobilize a response very quickly. And they also say they're ready to actually head to assist their neighbors when the time comes. But trying to navigate the difficult bureaucracy of getting into Myanmar when you have militias that are controlling certain areas, and then you have the military junta that also controls a smart portion of the country, it's just incredibly complicated. But the criticism and the anger, of course, is a natural thing that would occur after a tragedy like this. But in terms of predicting an earthquake, there are many voices who would say, how can you actually predict a tragedy like this? You never really do know when a big one is about to hit. And this is about as big as they come, a 7.7 magnitude quake, the equivalent of hundreds of nuclear bombs. And that's evidenced by the fact that even hundreds of miles from the epicenter, you have disaster and destruction like this.
All right, Will, we very much appreciate the update. Thank you.